Hello and welcome to Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name is Andrew Marsh, and I was diagnosed with Asperger's 7 years ago after having a successful career as a geologist in the construction industry. And I now work with employers to better manage people with Asperger's syndrome at work using all my life experience and other techniques and tools that I picked up along the way to work with employers, find out how people like me tick and what it is that employers can do to help them work better in the workplace. So I'm going to be talking about a perhaps not particularly well-known aspect of some people with Asperger's syndrome, and that is acceptance of difference. Well, what does that mean? Well, it kind of means what it says, really. Um, Taking myself as an example, my life story, um, I was always different. Never felt as though I fitted in, with one or two notable exceptions. But most of the time, I didn't fit in with people, whether that was friends, family, schoolmates, workmates, colleagues. I struggled to fit in. I didn't understand the social norms and the social conventions. I was the misfit, um, and I really did struggle with that. I made few friends, I say, with the odd exception. I did well at sixth form and at doing my masters at university, but most of the rest of the time, I struggled with interacting with people, not so much from a complete comprehension point of view, but some of the things that I would say, just as I'm talking to you in a normal manner, I would get incredulous and looks from people and say, "Well, what did you mean by that?" And it seemed to be perfectly clear to me, but it wasn't to them. And sometimes they would say things that I didn't really understand because I would take things literally, and that when people found out that became a source of quite humor and ridicule, humor to others and ridicule because I would be the butt of the joke because I was always taking things literally. So, what does acceptance of difference mean? Well, taking that viewpoint that I was always different, then accepting of differences for people with Asperger is realizing that you're different, and so you're less likely to be judgmental of others who are different to you and different to the norms in society. Now that could be anything from religious beliefs. It could be race, color, creed, sexual identity, and gender. Um, your size, the color of your hair, because it doesn't matter how we all present ourselves to think that we are conventional and I'm going to use the terrible word normal, because what does actually normal mean? Because when you break it all down, we're 7 billion individuals on a planet, but that's maybe a talk for another day. But what does it mean when you look at people? Do you look for similarities in them? Oh yeah, they're the same as me. They're about 5'10". They've got short brown hair, bit of a middle-aged spread on them. Or do you think, well, that person's different because they're much taller than me, or they're much shorter, or they're much bigger, or they've got red hair or ginger hair, or they've got a long chin, or they've got a scar on their face. We tend to, whether we consciously do it or not, we tend to look at other people and compare them to ourselves. And people who are noticeably different tend to get picked out. I know when I was at school and I was at school in the south of England, and we had a new black child, school kid, come to join us, and he did not fit in very well, and we didn't enable him to fit in very well. He was different. He was the new boy, and I know what it's like to be the new boy because I was the new boy at school. I joined halfway through a year, so I know what it was like to be the new boy. But I have to say, because he was black, we didn't treat him well, and it was an unconscious thing. And I very much regret that. And I really do. I look back at that and I'm horrified by how I've treated some people in my life. And now that I know I have Asperger's, I was diagnosed 7 years ago. I think I could have done something differently there. I could have stood up for that person. I could have said something. I could have stopped some of the ridicule. But that standing out to make to try and put a stop to something then made you the exception. It made you a target, and I was very much a target as a child, and growing up and work, in professional career as a geologist. I was a target. I was absolutely a target for many people that I worked with. And it's taken me into my adult life and being diagnosed with Asperger's to actually realize and look back that we do people do judge other people or view them differently because they are different to you. So I've very much taken it upon myself to be far more accepting of others, no matter what their difference is to me, whether it's their, as I said earlier, it's their race, their creed, color, sexual identity, color of hair, color of eyes, anything. I take people on face value. I take that's a person in front of me. I'm going to welcome that person, be friendly and nice to them, and as I said on my LinkedIn post this week yesterday, if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Full stop. Nothing else comes into the picture. Nothing else is significant. If you are nice to me, I'll be nice to you, and I will even give you the benefit of the doubt a couple of times because I may have misunderstood what you said. It may be the way my Asperger's brain works that I haven't picked you up quite rightly, and that's partly my fault for not understanding you correctly, and perhaps partly the other person's fault for not being clear. Coming back to clear, specific, and precise as three of the things that I when I work with employers say, be very clear, specific, and precise in the instructions you give to others, all other people, but particularly those with autism or Asperger's syndrome. So I might have picked someone up wrong, or they might not have been clear in what they've said. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt a couple of times. And usually we've built up a relationship and we built up an understanding and we get along fine. And that really is all it is about being nice and friendly and kind to other people. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. And so I'm accepting. I've realized that I should be more accepting of other people who are different to me, but also other people who are similar to me. If I meet other people who have Asperger's or autism, I can understand to some extent because my representation of autism and Asperger's is different to other people's. And so it might come across differently to them. And so their representation might be different and their traits, their challenges, their foibles are different, might be different to mine. And so I have to be more understanding that what is okay for me and what I comprehend and understand and deal with in an okay manner might be something that they have a challenge with and they struggle with. And so I'm more open and understanding of others that are on the spectrum. Um, and I try and find ways to communicate with them in the right way that works for them. And that's actually a very key point that I want to just re-emphasize there is if you're a boss, if you're a manager, and you've got people who are autistic or have Asperger's syndrome in your workplace, you have to find the way that they work best and that how to communicate with them for that person so that you can relate to them in the way that they understand best. Now that might mean, and it does mean that one size doesn't fit all, but it might mean that you have to adjust how you communicate with certain people in your teams because they will receive and understand instructions differently than neurotypical people. And so it's really important to find out how someone works, how they communicate best, how you communicate with them best, so that you can deliver your needs and what they want to what you want them to do for work in a clear and concise manner, so that they can do that. And that might be different in a different way to the next person sitting next to you. So back in the old days, we used to. Back in the old days before I had computers at work, we would send out memos, and this would be the findings, or this would be what we wanted people to do, and that was it. Everyone would all get the same memo, copied, circulated, distribution, and all the rest of it, and that would be the instructions as to what everyone needed to do. But it might just be that someone on the spectrum doesn't work particularly well with long written instructions. They might like visual aids. They might like color coding. They might like small, short amounts of text and an image and bullet points summarizing, rather than giving them something that's 7 or 8 pages long. They might not be able to comprehend that particularly well because it's too much block text. And so you need to find the way that works for them. So one size doesn't fit all, and you need to adapt how you communicate with different people in your teams. And it's really important to understand that. And so this accepting of difference is actually something that I'm more aware of myself when I go out and I meet people. Shopping queues. We've all been in shopping queues and we thought that person's taking a long time. Well, that person might have a bad back, or they might have a sore knee, or just had a hip replacement. They're doing their best they can. They're not deliberately trying to hold you up. So, just take a deep breath. Think, do you know what? I haven't been at my best sometimes, and I'm sure I possibly held people up in queues in the supermarket. It's okay. I'm not going to create a scene and have a word with that person. They're doing the best they can because they're not deliberately setting out to make you wait longer. So that's just a simple example of accepting someone else and their challenges, their whether that's mobility issues or whether it's cognitive behavioral issues. But everyone has their own thing that they're going through, and it's really important that all of us understand that every single one of us is going through something. Now, that might be a good thing. We might be going through, we might be on the crest of a wave. The project they've been working on has gone really great. You're in a fantastic relationship. Things are going well, and things are going really well. So you're in a high place. You're in a positive place. But there could be other people out there that are struggling. They've had a bad week. They've had a bad month. They lawnmower's just broken and their grass is now 2 feet high, and they don't know how they can fix that. That might be playing on them. Their neighbors might be saying, you could get your grass cut. And so they might be having all of these things going on in their head. They're just out to get their shopping. So try and be a little bit more understanding. And I point the finger directly at myself when I'm saying that, is be more understanding of others. Because yeah, I was in the supermarket last week and a lady wasn't moving forward quite in the way that I wanted, but I didn't say anything because I didn't know that lady may have been struggling with something that I'm completely unaware of, and me saying something would have been rude. It would have been unfair, and it could have put pressure on her when she might have been struggling with something that's going on. Her husband might have had an accident the day before, and she has to go out to the shops to get him food for 2 or 3 days so that she can look after him. Well, she doesn't need someone in the queue saying, "Come on, lady, move it." That's not the way to do things. So when you find yourself in situations where someone else is struggling with something, just take a moment to think, maybe they're not having a good day, and they absolutely need to do this thing for themselves or for someone they're caring for. Give them the time. Don't chivvy them. Don't berate them. Just let them go about their thing. And if it's the person in front of you and they're having trouble packing their shopping bag, say, "Excuse me, can I help you with your packing?" Now, they might say, "No, I'm fine, thanks." But they might say, "Oh, do you know what? That would be really kind of you. Thank you." So that's a much better thing to do if you see someone struggling than berate them for being slow and you've got things to do. And well, if you were that busy and you've got things to do, then maybe you should have left half an hour earlier or given yourself more time. Don't project your angst and your situations onto someone else, because they might be having a difficult day. They might be having a worse day than you. So allow other people to have their way of life, have their ability to be themselves and get by. If we see someone on crutches, we're not going to suddenly go, "Come on, mate, move on. We need to get on with it. You're blocking the path." You would, you would stand back, you would let them go past, and you say, "You okay?" And then you walk on. Same with someone in a wheelchair. You might be more tolerant of someone in a wheelchair because they're doing the best they can. So if you don't see someone having something obvious that they're struggling with, as I said earlier, They might have had a hip replacement last month and it's really giving them grief, particularly in the winter when it's cold and it's damp and their hip is really sore, or their knee's bad, or they've got sore feet, or their arthritis in their fingers is bad and they can't get into their purse or their wallet to get the money out, or their club card or whatever it is. You know, that might be you one day. It might be me one day. You know, I have Asperger's, I have my challenges, and I don't like it when someone tries to get in my face about something. That immediately gets me defensive, and I really have to take a deep breath, take a step back. You know, is it really worth going at it now over this thing that someone has said? Because they don't know I have Asperger's. I don't have a sign up. I have an alert card that I've been given by in conjunction with the police and the people who diagnosed me. But that's in the event that I get into a situation that might become unpleasant or confrontational. I can say, really sorry, I have Asperger's, and if someone then says, no, you don't, there's nothing wrong with you, you don't look like you've got Asperger's, I've got a card that says I have an autism spectrum disorder. I may not react in the way that you perceive. I may not understand questions you're asking in a certain way. And that I've only had to use it once in the last 10 years, or since I got my diagnosis 7 years ago. So, but I have that. And if I need to use it, I will do. I don't use it for trivial things, but put yourself in someone else's shoes, someone who's being a bit slow in the supermarket, and just think, just give them some time. It's okay. It's okay. You take your time. Can I help you get that thing down from the top shelf because you seem to be struggling, rather than sitting there, come on, come on, come on, come on, and chuntering under your breath. So be more tolerant. We need, if there's 2 or 3 things we need in society, we need to be more kind to each other. We need to be more tolerant of each other. And if we can do that, the ripple effect will cascade out. And it will. You know, if we all start being nice to each other, letting someone in the queue in front of you, if you're driving and someone's trying to get in front of you, if they're doing it in a, you know, one from my lane, one from your lane, one from my lane, one from your lane, you would let them in. If you've got someone that's just tanked down the outside lane when they know that the cones are coming in and trying to push in, that's a little bit different, you know. But then, even then, you don't know whether they have an emergency. That person's child or their grandparent might have just fallen or had an accident at work or school or at home, and they need to get to a hospital quickly. So don't just think that that person who's steamed down the outside of the lane trying to push in is being, you know the word, they might have an emergency and they might need to get to a hospital. Could be someone whose wife's giving birth. I know what it was like when my first wife was having children. I can tell you a little story actually. When my wife was pregnant, I was working down in the Lake District. I live in Glasgow, and she wasn't due for a few weeks. So I get up in the morning on a Monday morning. I'd have my bag packed already, and I would drive down to site. It's about 2.5 hours, 2 hours 40 minutes. I remember one Monday morning, I got to work, got to my desk, and my colleague said, "Don't put your bag down. We've had a phone call from your wife. She's in labor. Turn yourself around and go back up the road." So I turned myself around. I went back up the road. I got back up to the hospital a little quicker than when I drove down the road. I got there and I went straight to the delivery room. You know, your wife's in labor, having a baby. It's your first one. I went straight to the delivery room at the hospital where she would go for her checkups. No, there's no one here of that name. You sure? I've just had a phone. I had a phone call about 2.5 hours ago. She was in labor. No, she's not. Try the ward. So I went up to the ward and she's standing in the ward talking to someone. Hello, false alarm. So having seen that she was okay and all the rest of it, I then drove back down to work and got to work about 12:30. So that's 3 trips up and down to the Lake District, something like 550 miles on the car. And that was it. But these are things that you do. So on my way back up the motorway to the hospital, yeah, I might have been in a bit more of a hurry than when I had driven down to work in the morning, and would have been nice if people had got out of my way. But they don't know. I don't have a sign on my car that says, "Wife giving birth, get out of my way." Try and be a little more tolerant of others. You don't know what their circumstances are. You don't know what they're going through. Be a bit nicer. Be a bit more tolerant. Be a bit more accepting of people who are different, because you don't know their circumstances. Hang on. And one day it could be you that has fallen and broken their leg, and they're in crutches and they're hobbling around the supermarket. You'll have a very different perspective on viewing people with mobility issues if you've been in a situation you're on crutches because you've damaged your foot or your leg and you're in plaster. Happened to me once. Oh, it's happened to me more than once. Um, I'd been in work, a new job, 3 weeks, and I was on a stag weekend with one of my new colleagues, and I stumbled on the footpath in Glencoe and broke my ankle. Not wanting to disrupt the event, I carried on with a broken ankle for the rest of the day and the whole of the next day. Unfortunately, I wasn't driving. My colleague drove me home. When I got home and took my boot off, my my ankle had swollen up about the size of a melon, and my wife panicked and took me to the hospital. And yeah, you broken my ankle. So I had to hobble about with a stookie on my foot and crutches. Yeah, you have a completely different perspective on life, on mobility, on other people who are struggling, who, as I said, might have arthritis in their hands, or their sore knees or hip replacement. Don't wait until it's you to be kind to other people who are different to you, because you don't know what they're going through. Have a think. Take a moment after you've watched this video, and say, do you know what? I'm gonna do what he says. I'm gonna think about that, and I'm going to be a little bit more tolerant of other people, because I don't know what their circumstances are. And if you can do that, and you can do that with a smile, and you can maybe offer to help someone if you think it's appropriate, then do that. That's not much nicer uh, environment to be in than berating someone who's being slow because they've got a bad hip or arthritis in their hands. You know, let's try and be a little bit nicer to each other. So accepting of difference. This is an important aspect of where we are in the workplace today. I'm going to tell you a very important and significant statistic now, or piece of data. We are in the third decade of the 21st century. I want that just to sink in for a minute. We are in the third decade of the 21st century. We're not in the 1960s, 1970s, or even 1980s. The 1980s started 42 years ago, 42 and a half years ago. You know, the practices and the way that we dealt with people in employment and business and society is completely different to what it is now. We have to have evolved over the last 42 years, since the beginning of the 1980s, to be more accepting of other people, more tolerant of other people, no matter what country or they come from, what color, creed, sexual identity, gender. None of that matters. It's the person inside that matters, and it's how we get along, how we manage each other, how we treat each other with respect and with kindness. And it's quite likely that in the place that you work, there are people that are different races to you. There are people that are different religious beliefs to you. There are people that are different nationalities to you. Welcome them. Shake their hand. Say good morning with a smile when you see them in the morning. How are you today? Did you have a good weekend? Doesn't take 10 seconds to be kind to someone. And the impact that that kindness can have on someone else could be immeasurable. You might just give a nice smile and a nice good morning to someone who's having a really crap day, or had a bad morning. They've had a flat tire on the way to get into work, or the bus has been late, or the train has been delayed. And that good morning with a nice bright smile could just be the thing that turns their day from being a bad one to a better one. And we can all do that. We can all do that. So I ask you to be more accepting of difference. I ask you to be more accepting of others who are different from you, there may be someone with mobility issues, as I said about someone in the supermarket, or someone in the wheelchair, or someone with crutches. Because you never know what is around the corner and what is going to happen to you. It might be you in 20 years' time that has the cane and the cane because you've got a dodgy knee and you need a cane to get around. You wouldn't have thought that 20 years ago. Maybe your perspective on life is a little bit different. So be nice to each other. Hold the door open for someone, even if they don't say thank you. Let it go. Be nice, be kind, be more accepting of those others around you. Because if you are, and you're nice and you're kind to your colleagues, people you meet in the supermarket, your friends and family, guess what will happen? That niceness will rub off. It might even rub off on that cantankerous old uncle that you've got who's always horrible. Don't sink to their level. Raise the game, raise the bar. Because if you're being nicer to everyone, it will filter down, it will filter through. Because one day you might be at work at 4 o'clock and you've got something to be out by 5:15 to get in the post that night. And the only way you can get that out is if two of your colleagues help you out. Now, they might have other things that they need to do, but if you say to them, do you know what? I need a bit of help with this. Is it possible for you to give me a hand for an hour so I can get this out? If you've been grumpy, if you're miserable, and if you're terse or curt with them, they're more likely to say, do you know what? I'm really busy. I've just got something I've got to do myself. But if you're nice and polite to them, you greet them with a nice, warm, welcoming smile in the morning, and you're nice to them, and you take a moment when you're having your tea break, your coffee break, to find out how they are, how they had a good weekend, did they have a good night? They're more likely to say, do you know what? What I'm doing can wait. I will help you out. That makes everyone look good. It makes the business that you're working for look good because you got something out on time. And it means that you will help them out if they come over to you and say, do you know what, can do with the help with this? I'm not sure how to work this spreadsheet. Could you come and show me? Can you come and sit with me for half an hour? That's how I learned to do spreadsheets, was to sit with someone who knew how to do it better than me and sit down with them and say, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me? I was very much, if you show me how to do something, I will learn how to do it. So that show me twice and I should be able to pick it up so that I can then show someone else. That's how I learned to use a computer to write a document, to write a report. Typing, I had no idea how to type. I still only type with two or three fingers, but I'm quite fast typist now. But sitting with someone who's done it before and can show you, that's great. Get them a cup of coffee, or when you're if it's in the morning, say, do you want to come down the road and I'll get you some lunch, or buy you a sandwich for your lunch? They're more likely to help you out next week, next month, next year, than if you just sat there and say, I can't do this. You show me how to do this now. That's not how to do it. That wasn't how to do it in the 80s or the 60s. It's not how to do it now. Be polite. If you ask someone in a nice, polite way, you're more likely to get a positive response than if you berate people and you demand that they help you now just because you're the boss. The boss, got news for you. The boss is there to make sure that everyone works as efficiently and effectively as possible. The boss is not there to clock watch when you come in, how long you've had for your breaks, and all of those things. That's not what a boss is for. It's not what a boss was ever supposed to be for in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's certainly not what a boss is for now. A boss is there to support everyone that they have in their team so that they can be at their effective best and efficient best and most productive. That's what a good boss does. Boss doesn't sit there and go, you were 2 minutes late this morning. Yeah, well, actually, I stayed half an hour late last night to get something done. That doesn't matter. You were 2 minutes late this morning. Guess what that's going to do? It's going to mean that person at 5:15, when his time is up, is going to down tools and walk out, whether they finished what they've done or not. That's it. You want me to do 9 to 5? That's what you get. If you're going to chivvy me for being late 2 minutes because there was an accident on the motorway, I'm not going to stay beyond my contracted hours to help you out with something. It's not going to happen. Much more nice if you say, how you getting? Noticed you're a couple of minutes late. Is everything okay? Yeah, there was a problem on the motorway. Oh, right, don't worry about it. No problem at all. End of story. End of situation. Diffuse the issue before it becomes a major issue. Because all that you're going to do if you start chivying people in that way is you create resentment, you don't get teams working for you, and you will have people leave. You will have high attrition rates, you will have absenteeism even. You have people off work from sick, through stress, through not being able to cope and focus because of the stressful way that you are managing them. People leave, high turnover, that costs the business, you get less productive as a team, and you're going to have people complaining to HR. Even if you scare them to death, you will eventually have someone complain to HR that you are being a difficult boss. Is that what you want? No. Be more accepting and be kinder. Be nice to people. It costs you nothing. It costs you nothing to be nice to people. Be accepting of difference. Because we can all do it. And as I said earlier, we are in the third decade of the 21st century. Come on, we can step up. We can do better. We can be nicer to our colleagues. We can be nicer to the people in the supermarket, to our friends and family. And that little ripple will have an effect. If you're nice to someone, you don't know whether if you're nice to someone today in the supermarket, I keep using the supermarket as an example because I'm going to the shops after this. You don't know that that nice positive impact you have on someone could just be the difference between someone going home, having a bad day and shouting at their kids or shouting at their partner because you could be the person that turns that person around and they go, oh, that was kind of them. That was nice. And you've changed their mindset completely so that the kids don't get yelled at. The kids get help with their homework. And your partner is nice. And you're nicer to your partner when they come in from work. That's a better way for us to be, isn't it? Isn't it? I think so. And I think we can do it. So that was my topic today, acceptance of difference. And I know I've meandered around the topic into other things, but I think it's important that we take a broader look at how we interact with other people, be they friends, work colleagues, people meet in the supermarket, people on the street. And we should be nicer to each other. We can do it. We have the ability to do it. Let's make the change, shall we? Let's be nice to people. Smile, be nice, help someone out if you can, because that will come back to you. When you need something done 4 o'clock on a Friday, they're more likely to turn around and say, yeah, I'll give you a hand. Rather than, oh, it's 5 o'clock, bye. And they all stream out the door and you're left there on your own. No one to help you, no one to support you. And you've got something that is going to take you another hour and a half to get out. Which would you prefer? So I work with employers to help them manage people with Asperger's syndrome in a better way, in a better manner. I have my own 7 steps program that I work through with employers on how to do that. So if you're interested in knowing more about how to manage people with Asperger's syndrome in the workplace, or just generally how to get on with some, maybe you've just found that your nephew, your son, your daughter, your grandchild has just been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and you think, what can I do to help them in a family situation, or help them be better at school, help them? What can I do? If you want to know more about how to do those things, please drop me a line. You can get me through my website at aspergersmatters.com, or if you want to drop me an email, it's andrew@aspergersmatters.com, and I would welcome the opportunity to chat with you. I offer a free 30-minute consultation for anyone that wants to talk to me about Asperger's in the workplace, or anything else for that matter. And I'll be delighted to help you out. So that's all I wanted to cover today. Keep a lookout on Friday afternoon for what next week's Talking Asperger's with Andrew will be about. I post it on a LinkedIn event, and take care. Be careful in this heat that you don't get steamed out with all the heat. Keep yourself hydrated, plenty of water, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So until next time, take care, goodbye, and thank you.